Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session of the Mainframe Open Education Student User Group. I am Taylor Rupek. I am the host today, and I am joined by Matthew Hollister. Matthew is currently working at Broadcom as a Mainframe Business Specialist. He began his mainframe career in January 2020 at IBM as a Z Software Client Leader. In this capacity, he sold cross-brand mainframe software to U.S. federal agencies. And since 2023, he has been working with Broadcom as a mainframe business specialist. In this role, he continues to work with federal agencies and is responsible for providing mainframe software contract renewal support and solution technical guidance in a manner that best positions customers for success. Thank you so much for joining us today, Matt. Do you have anything to add from that little bio that I jumped over?
Well, Taylor, first off, thank you for having me. It's a
Yeah.
pleasure to be here. And yeah, the only thing that I would have to add is, like most mainframers within our generation, I definitely did not start my career in the mainframe. At school, I was studying to become a doctor until one summer when I was trying to make money as a lifeguard. I met someone from IBM who was telling me about how they were applying artificial intelligence to the healthcare setting, and it was this new big thing, and that I should get an internship. And I did, and the internship went well, and IBM gave me a job. But by the time I got into IBM the following year, Watson Health made a lot of promises that they couldn't keep, and I had to find a new career pretty quickly. And that's when I discovered the mainframe space and how there was a lot of job positions open, and that was a place where I could provide some real value in my career that early on. And I've been here ever since, and I've been loving it ever since.
Well, we're glad to have you in this field, and I am very fascinated with the jump from med student to, mainframe world. I am just curious about this, and this just thought that occurred to me. Like when you explain your path to other people that you were in like the same cohort as in college, are they like, you're doing what now? Like, is there ever like a like how the heck did you end up doing this moment with them? Or is it like, oh yeah, Matt, that just sounds like Matt. He does this kind of thing. You know what I mean?
It's one of those things where, talking to Matt 5 years ago, if you were to tell where current Matt would be, he probably wouldn't believe you. Life definitely threw a couple of curveballs at me that set off, threw off the trajectory of the otherwise pretty concrete life plan that was before me. Whether people would believe that that's a very Matt thing to do, I'll leave.
It's
Gonna have to ask.
controversial. Yeah.
Gonna have to ask them, but regarding explaining what it is I do, I'm pretty passionate about that. And as you know with me from our previous conversations, I have no problem talking about it.
That's awesome. So what was it that initially, because you first were approached by someone, just working at IBM as a lifeguard, and they started saying, "Hey, we want someone with medical experience to come over and do this." What was your, because that's all part of your journey to mainframe. It's a very holistic experience, I think. In that moment, like what were you thinking like you would find that you were interested in the technical field as a whole, if that makes sense? Like what was your draw to be like, I want to go check out IBM?
Kind of just the mystery about it. I didn't know anything about technology prior to that. What I knew was medicine and hospital jargon, and
Hmm.
that's why they wanted me to come on board because that's what they were looking for that particular project, applying AI to the healthcare setting. They would teach you the technical jargon along the way. And that was a new world that I hadn't really explored, and finding where those worlds converged was something that was very appealing to me, as was the concept of getting my career started within the next year, as opposed to being miserable for the next 4 years in med school, as my friends who ended up going to med school could attest to.
And I this is completely unrelated to mainframe, but but I think it does attest to your decision. Part of going into med school is you go through these additional 4 years of like kind of like a graduate school, and then you go through 4 years of like however many of a residency, and then you finally get the chance at like being a full-on doctor. So it's like a 10-year process, basically, right?
10-year process, $500,000 in debt by the end of it. Yeah, the
Okay.
whole the whole nine.
So so there was some other like, and do you ever feel like, hey, maybe this was a decision that I would have done differently in the past? Or are you pretty happy with your trajectory towards the mainframe today?
I'm very happy with the trajectory that I went on. For me personally, I think it was the right call. Looking back on it with 2020 perfect vision,
Yeah.
hindsight.
So that's kind of the story of how you got into the technical field. So then during your time at IBM Watson, you kind of started to become interested in the mainframe. Could you expand on when that happened and what your first interaction was with the mainframe for me?
Necessity. It really was a necessity at the time because ultimately Watson Health was spun off. Again, made a lot of promises they couldn't keep. So it was one of those things where if I wanted to continue to be employed, I needed to find a new job quickly. So I was doing networking, and my boss introduced me to one of his friends who had an open position on his team, and that was for mainframe software sales. And that
Okay.
was my first foray into mainframe, not on a technical level, but more on a soft skills, 30,000 foot view sales level.
Mhm.
And that's also where I started working in the government sector because that was my clientele at the time, and it has been ever since.
So it's really interesting, and I think we can talk about this a little bit more at this point. You have networked a lot. And I'm just gonna go on a brief little journey on what you've done that has made you able to network so well. Like, do you have a specific mindset or skill set that has helped you? Because one thing that I think a lot of people are when they keep listening to these conversations, people are finding their entry into this field a lot by networking and meeting new people. So I'm really curious, do you have any advice on how to network? And I know this is a complete like ad hoc question, so if you can't really explain it like to its fullest consent, I completely understand. I'm sorry to just jump on it with you like hard questions.
No, thank you for doing so, because that's actually a question that hits home with me in particular, because
Hmm.
naturally I do not have the networking skill set. By nature, I am an introvert. In high school and college, I had phone phobia. I didn't want to pick up the phone. I didn't even want to text people. I just wanted to be in my own little bubble. So I really had to go against my own natural instincts in order to go into this new salesman position that I had just I had just accepted. And that was
Hmm.
baptism by fire. That was really sink or swim. So I was an introvert who had to masquerade as an extrovert and learn how to pick up those soft skills. And the only way that I can describe how to do it is by exposure therapy. There really is no other way to do it except to just do it, to do things like these, to get in front of people, to talk with people, to share experiences, to absorb experiences, to relay those experiences to new people, and just develop conversations. And a part of what helped me in order to talk to people was just becoming comfortable about the subject matter that I was talking about. So the more I learned, the easier it became to talk and the more comfortable I became while talking. So that's my 2 cents there. A, just know your stuff, learn as
Hmm.
much as you can, and B, just get in front of people and go against your own instincts in order to do so. It feels really uncomfortable at first, but it does ease off over time.
That's really good advice, and I appreciate that. So that kind of helps set the foundation for how you're able to talk to so many people and network. And you know, it's really awesome to hear that because it's just another story about I got in the mainframe just by talking to people. And I think it's really important to really consider that as you move forward with everybody's careers as they're on this call is just talking to people will get you very far and it's not comfortable. So, what was your first memorable experience working with the mainframe? And I know it's different from you, but I'm guessing you had like an education session on like, hey, this is what a mainframe is. Do you remember what your first thoughts are about that, or like, oh, this is what it is, versus like, oh, hacking into the mainframe or like COBOL, like you know what I mean, like your traditional understanding of it.
I guess my first introduction to it was the global sales school that IBM put me through when
Hmm.
I was becoming a salesman.
Hmm.
And they give you a nice crash course on the entirety of IBM's portfolio, one of which was the mainframe, in addition
Hmm.
to all the software that runs on top of it. That was the first experience, and that was something that I really had to wrap my head around, just because it was so radically different from anything else I had learned at that
Yeah.
point. And I actually had to understand concepts like, the difference between hardware and middleware and software and how they interacted with each other, and, what software was, and how hardware made software a reality on a more practical, tangible level, and all these types of things.
So it's like just a whole new mindset to grasp. So to you, learning about the mainframe felt new then is kind of like this was a new piece of technology. This was you didn't feel like this is like something from like the 70s or 80s or something like that because you saw what was right out like of IBM's manufacturing plants, like the very new models and stuff like that.
I was a total blank slate. I had
Yeah.
no conceptions coming into the mainframe. I had no biases for or against it. It was a completely new technology, at least for me. For me, it might as well not have existed for the last 60 years. It might as well have been invented circa 2018.
That's interesting. So, was there a point where you started to learn that, like, hey, this has been around for a while and people consider it like an older technology? Was that something that was like, what do you mean? Or is it like, oh, I didn't know that people had this perspective? Like, do you have like a initial encounter that comes to mind, or is it kind of always been like pretty status quo? Like, this is what everybody relies on since you're on the federal side of the house.
Well, the thing that really hit me about it, particularly working in federal, is that there's like a great Schoolhouse Rock video that tells you how a bill becomes a law.
Yeah.
There's not really a good Schoolhouse Rock video to tell you how a law becomes a reality, because laws are very, strategic, theoretical things, and they have to be
Mm,
brought down to earth in a way and um, be executed on a more practical, tactical level. And
mm,
people responsible for doing that are the various agencies under the executive branch who make regulations on how to do just that, on how to actually execute laws and turn them into a reality for the American populace. And it just so
mm,
happens that within the IT world, there is a regulation that designates mainframe as being a legacy technology, something to get off of. So working in the federal space as a mainframer is kind of like going into a fight with one hand tied behind your back in that regards.
mm,
But you're also dealing with the reality that some of the mainframes in government are going to be here until the heat death of the universe. And luckily, the mainframe is a resilient enough technology where even if they try to move off it or go to a cloud, it's still going to continue to be here and consolidate and grow. And that was the first foray that I had into just how resilient and important this technology is, even if it is underappreciated. Because it is kind of, in a way, going up against the law on the land. And so far, it has survived 25 plus years.
And I think you mentioned this at one point, the federal laws around mainframe, and you've told me this a few times, and I think it's really interesting. It's you have to move off anything that's deemed legacy, right?
Yep.
And that is written into the laws. And then for whatever reason, mainframe is deemed legacy. So a lot of these departments, from what you've told me, have to move off, or they have to show an initiative to move off of them, and then even if they fail, they're still rewarded for trying is kind of the concept, right?
Correct. I mean, there is no law that says it. It's only within the regulations
Ah, right. Okay.
after the law. The law itself came out like under the Clinton era in 1996. And that was a law that effectively created CIOs within government agencies. And a lot of
Mm,
these CIOs that they hired and are still hiring tend to come from your Amazons and your Microsofts and your cloud providers of the world. So they do come in with a bias against the mainframe, and they were the ones who were helping to oversee the early regulations that designated mainframe as being legacy. And it's just been that way ever since. But it created a list of a checkbox list. And as
mm,
long as they're checking the boxes, however much, tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars they spent just trying to move single applications off the mainframe, they may increase risk. It may not work as well. It may spend a lot more taxpayer dollars than they otherwise would have to just maintaining the mainframe. Still a political success, at least
mm, mm.
at least in their world. That's That's my soapbox story, and that definitely solidified my own biases in favor of the mainframe. That's where I discovered there are some things that mainframe is just good at doing compared to other platforms like distributed and cloud. Good
Mm,
at back-end type work, huge applications doing millions of transactions. If you're dealing with front-end type stuff, yes, I would agree there is a space for that within cloud and distributed, and it probably is more scalable there. So there is no winner of the platform wars. It's just, what application is suited best for which type of server. That's
makes sense.
my big
So,
part from all of that.
what accounts do you support that you've seen these conversations pop up? And I think this is a cool this is definitely some cool exposure that you get to a lot of very unique three-letter agencies and whatnot, right?
From a front seat perspective, the DoD, Social Security, to some degree with my time at IBM, the VA, and the Department of Agriculture. And from a secondhand perspective, Treasury. And
Okay,
I'll often say that the two biggest mainframe footprints within government are Social Security and Treasury.
interesting. I didn't know about the Treasury. So what is, what are they using the mainframe for in these government agencies typically from your perspective? And only share what you can, you know?
Transactions, financial transactions, every time
Okay.
grandma pulls up Social Security to ask for her check, that's being
Mm,
processed on the mainframes within the government space.
pretty cool. So it's yet again the backbone of every major financial transaction, not just on the commercial side, but also on the government side.
Both within the government and the services that the government provides, yes. Anything from taxes to Social Security payments to the government workers' own checks is on the mainframe, yeah.
That's awesome. So you're telling me all about these your current roles in your environments, and I'm curious, like at what point did you decide, hey, I want to stay in the mainframe world as you learn more about technology? And, what does that look like? Why do you want to stay in it today?
There's a couple different reasons behind that. A, because the stability is there.
Mm,
Like we were talking about before, it's such a necessary piece of technology, even if it's undervalued. And I don't know, I guess the romantic in me just likes the idea of taking on the role of being an unsung hero in that respect.
yeah,
A lot of my fellow mainframers under 30 tend to empathize with. But more than that, the community itself just cannot be beat. Everyone's in the same boat. Everyone has been in the trenches. Everyone can empathize with each other's experience. So there's always someone that has your back. And I've met a lot of mainframers, and there aren't many on the list, if there are any at all, who I didn't like or found to,
yeah,
be a presence that I couldn't tolerate. Everyone's just been awesome.
that's really cool. So, kind of going back to this first mainframe role that you took at IBM, w- you know, how did you apply what you've learned at that point to your first kind of sales like role in the first mainframe opportunity you had? And typically when we ask this question, it's for more technical people, but I think the underlying knowledge and kind of how you apply it is still pretty much the same no matter what. Like, there's certain things that you learned, how did you apply them to that first mainframe role?
Yeah, and I'm currently trying to become a little bit more technical myself. To
Mm,
me, that's the next step of my own mainframe journey, having acquired some good soft skills.
mm,
Because I do think that there's nothing more powerful in this field than someone who A, knows the technology in depth and is able to communicate it effectively.
mm,
And the effective communication part, to answer your question, is where I think the early part of my journey was.
mm,
Data analysis, even when I was in biology and studying to become a doctor, was always a part of the job. And that
mm,
didn't change, especially going into mainframing, going into sales. From there, it was just figuring out how to take what I was learning, take the data, and being able to organize it and communicate it effectively. And that's a skill set that I apply daily, if not hourly, in my current role.
mm. So is there a way that, is there like a takeaway from one of those early things that you learned how to apply to sales? Is there like a strategy or kind of a outline for how to engage with people? Because what I've noticed, and I'm speaking as a former salesperson myself, that what you learn in sales is very, very applicable for communication skills later on in your career. And those sales skills can really help you pitch ideas within your organization and kind of get a little bit more buy-in from senior leadership. So I'm curious to see if you have anything off the top of your mind about like, here's something that I would recommend people consider, look into, or a framework if there is one.
Again, it comes down to just understanding to knowledge, understanding
Yeah.
the product, understanding the customer, understanding what they need, and also just sincerity and being candid. Frankly, when it comes to anyone in sales,
Mhm.
the BS meter tends to, have a pretty low threshold and the red lights
Yeah.
start to go up pretty quickly. So no one wants to beat around the bush. No one wants to hear fluffy marketing language. Just, tell them the product, tell them the capabilities, try to align their needs, get the diagnosis and make the prescription.
Okay.
Yeah.
So find the problem statement. So then like you're looking for a problem and what the solution is at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, if you're a salesperson and you're doing most of the talking, then you're doing the job wrong. It's definitely the other person who should be talking more because that's how you'll be able to help them. And that's how you'll be able to determine if your product set that you're trying to sell will actually be a good fit.
That's a good perspective. I think a lot of people think of salespeople as being talking a lot, but it is the opposite. Yeah, you got to listen and be able to guide them through their processes and what their needs are, because whatever you think their needs are is probably like 75% different than what they actually need. And like you'd be surprised, like I mean you and I both know, but like folks would be surprised what the actual reason for people doing something, purchasing something is, because most of the time it's like, oh, I would have never known that that was how you're pitching it internally.
Mhm.
So it's a lot of alignment too. Yeah. So how did you, and you kind of mentioned this, but how did you build your mainframe skills? Like, what are you doing right now to build those skills?
So in Broadcom, Taylor, as you know, we have the Vitality program, which is our solution within our company to
Mm-hmm.
try to bridge the disparity between marketing and the market demand.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing level, the narrative around the mainframe is still very much dominated by our beloved cloud providers.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is market demand on the actual ground floor, people are retiring out the mainframe and they need to replace those jobs. They need to find people who have those skills. And I don't know about you, but I didn't see any mainframe related jobs within
Yeah.
my college. So very few college kids actually know about the mainframe and know about the job opportunities that are present. And if they
Mm-hmm.
did know, I'm sure they would bite them, but that's a different story.
Right.
For now, it's the job of industry in order to try to fill those gaps. And so the Vitality program is just that. And it's for people who don't even know how to spell the word mainframe. They'll teach you what it is, the technical skills, system programming skills, as well as several products that Broadcom offers that you can specialize in. And that's what I'm putting through myself. I'm putting myself through at the moment to try to acquire mainframe skills on a more technical level as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
just a 30,000 foot view knowledge level.
And we have specific inner skill courses that are, I know Broadcom does, and I know as a whole, people, this is the end of the day, the pitch is inner skills is a good resource for people to get this knowledge. Because a lot of what you're going through training, and I'm familiar with some of that training as well, is all inner skills based training, right?
It's currently on InnerSkill. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's about everything. The mainframe foundations, which is
Uh-huh.
the first part of Vitality, that is a course that has a self-paced version on InterSkill right now.
Hmm.
And that's the first thing that I would direct people to if they have any interest in the mainframe on a technical level at all.
Yeah, that's a great resource. And I know IBM also has a similar thing for the Vitality program as Broadcom. There's a couple people who I've talked with in the past that also go through IBM's, but a lot of the vendors for mainframe related products do have some form of a entry level kind of ramp up into the mainframe world, and I think it's good to definitely check those out. But I am curious, and this might be a bit of a controversial discussion from the government perspective where you're seeing, and I'm sorry to switch gears on you again. Have you seen them hiring people with new skills, or is it mostly just people who have like, 10 plus years of experience? You know, and it's okay to be honest about what you've seen.
So the last 100 days, I would say not right now.
Yeah.
During the last 100
Yeah.
days, the focus has not been hiring, the focus has been cutting down. And
Hmm.
the first people to be cut were, the people on the edges of the age spectrum, the people who
Hmm.
have institutional knowledge, who are close to retiring. Those guys are gone, the institutional knowledge along with them, and also the probational hires, the people who were hired within
To
last year, let's say. Uh,
yeah.
those were also marked off.
And just to clarify, when you say probational hires in the government space means something different than what you would assume in a more commercialized space, right? Like it means you've only been with the government for like a year or two. It's nothing to do with like punitive measures, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
a designation for, the rookie or the newbie,
Mm,
effectively. But yeah, and beyond that, there's been a hiring freeze. And right now, the great experiment seems to be at what point, after we cut this many contracts and people, can the system still run without breaking? Which is a very interesting experiment. And I think they're beginning to back off of it a little bit. So maybe we'll see some people be hired in
mm,
to help replace what was lost for the time being. But it'll likely be contractors of people who
mm.
used to work in the government and who've been working in the space for 20, 30, 40 years, passing off their knowledge and skill set to the people who are left. Um,
So there's kind of a life cycle to this kind of activity of, hey, we laid off a bunch of people. We now need this knowledge. Let's contract all of this back out from the people that we've let go, and we'll bring them back really expensive. But past that point, the thought is eventually they're going to need a lot of people, right, in the future to run these environments because they're the backbone of the government's financial capability. You know, do you think they're gonna eventually be like, hey, we need people, we don't know where to get them from?
oh yeah, absolutely. And that's been the majority of my experience within the past year and a half. People taking advantage of the Vitality program in particular. And after a government hires someone, they just put them through it to get the training. And then they go off into the working world and march right along. And the government has been heavy users of that program. I,
Interesting.
I imagine it's been the same for IBM's apprenticeship program. I think it is.
That would make a lot of sense. So do you think they're properly prepared for what the future holds because they're using these programs, or do you think there's still going to be kind of this growing gap of knowledge? And I know that's a hard question to answer.
Well, I mean, it's the same with any technology. Everything is always changing, and there's always going to be something new to learn as time goes on and as the technology changes. Um, this is the open mainframe project, right?
Yeah.
So it seems to be the direction that the mainframe is going. Since college kids don't have green screen skills or pure and proper mainframe skills,
Hmm.
the big bridge, I'll say, or the big drive has been trying to make mainframe assets more usable with someone who's dealing with a newer tool set.
Hmm.
You know, opening up the mainframe assets via APIs, using extensions to get COBOL onto VS Code and that kind of thing. That's where I see the direction of mainframe going. Not the applications moving off, but making the mainframe assets, COBOL code, mainframe applications more palatable, more accessible, more understandable for someone who isn't a native mainframer.
Interesting. So there is, you do foresee kind of a future where they're trying to make it more accessible then.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna do a brief 30-second pause. If anybody has any questions, please throw them in the chat. Throw Matt some really tough questions, please. He can definitely handle it. Sorry to put you on the spot. If not, we'll move on to the next section for growing to serve. Um,
Hit me
so
with what you got.
yeah, let's see here. Give it a minute. Uh, a quiet panel today. Anyway, so it looks like I'm not seeing any questions pop up. So we'll move on to the next section for growing this serve. And this is going to be more, oh, hang on. I skipped one. So Jared Norris says, I've been an Oracle PeopleSoft developer for over 20 years, but I want to work on IBM ZOS. How can I break into the industry? And I'd love to get your thought on that, Matt. Like, I know it's a hard question to ask, but like, where do you think a good starting point is?
Oof. I actually know people who work in the mainframe space who worked at Oracle before going back into the mainframe space. If the person wants to reach out to me personally, I could make that connection. That might be a good foray. Because otherwise, the answer that I would give is just network, LinkedIn, reach out to your community. And I'm just a part of that network. So I might as well throw that out there and offer a helping hand in that instance for this particular person.
I think that's honestly the absolute best answer. We could say whatever we want, but it's very different from you being like, oh, here, like this person did this journey. You should go ask them because, like, me and you, we haven't worked with Oracle before. I mean, maybe you have, but I haven't. So I wouldn't be able to tell you anything. But, the person who's done this journey is the real person who would be a good point of contact. And this is kind of the idea behind networking in the mainframe space is like, there's people with a lot of knowledge over what you want to do, and they're willing to connect you with those people, and we're willing to connect you with those people. So please, by all means, reach out to Matt. So Bruno says,
People,
I did the Vital. Oh, you're
sorry,
on
just
mute.
want to make sure people have my contact information, right?
I will
Okay.
post that actually. In a Let me do that. Oh, hang on. Let me post your LinkedIn information real quick. It is, I'm pretty sure this is your LinkedIn. Let's see here. Someone can confirm with me if that's not, but we can send out that as well.
Yep, that's the right one. I
Awesome.
just, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, didn't mean
Um, no, 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 that's a really good one. So Bruno says, I did the Vitality program. That is a great one if you want to become an Endeavor admin. After there is an IBM Z Explore program, and I can see that IBM start the open new platform to put the CV. So what Bruno said is also, I think, accurate. IBM has a lot of resources, and you can post your CV, I think, in their Z Explorer
And
portal.
but it does seem like Jared did mention that he did Z Explore
Mm,
and is ranked 39. And yeah, and I just gotta say, being here is a good step.
yeah.
Showing up to events like this, showing up to webinars, and talking to people and asking questions like you are, that's how you get moving and connecting with those with the people at these events as well.
Right.
And I did want to point out something very important that he said. When I look for jobs, they are all senior level, no entry level or tech transfer. That's very true, and that was a huge problem for me as well, especially when making the jump from IBM to Broadcom. When I applied for my current role online, I was denied every time because they were looking for 10 to 15 years of experience. But then my current manager reached out to me on LinkedIn and said that they'd be interested in a more junior person who'd be sticking around a lot longer. So in that respect, um, fresh blood is more appealing than you think. And if people post a job out there, don't let that 10 to 15 years of experience rule put you down as long as you have the skills to back it up. And yeah, as long as you have some kind of technological background and are, a fast learner and are willing to stick around for a couple of years, you are an attractive candidate for the mainframe environment and continue to be gung-ho with your applications.
And so what Matt says, this is where networking is really important because the hiring managers are actually probably really interested in meeting you, but there's layers of separation between that application and the hiring managers. So, and what the network kind of does is it lets you pass over that. And if they're really interested in a junior person, the networking aspect of this community, the mainframe community as a whole, will help you get to that point. Or you might be networking with Matt and he might be like, oh yeah, so and so is looking for a junior role. It's not posted anywhere, but I know they're looking for it. There's thing I've seen consistently within the mainframe environment is those applications are kind of pretty hit and miss, mostly miss, in my opinion. But once you get in the community is very much able to guide you towards there's a role here. We need someone desperately just like you. So that's kind of one of the big aspects of this community is we can like there's people who want to help you grow and get connected with the people who need your skill set. And to be fair, like I think it's their ranking. I'm sure there's a mainframe manager who'd be like, wow, that's really impressive. I'm very interested in that. But to an HR person, they're like, I don't know what that is, like what are your leak code, whatever, like experiences. Like there's a huge disconnect between what the hiring managers look like and what the application is looking for sometimes in my experience.
Yeah.
Um,
But I
so
will point out that Jared, I think, kind of answered his own question just by being here and asking the
yeah,
question. That is
yeah,
exactly what you should do if you want to break into the mainframe space. And good on you for already taking that first step. Yeah, the AI resume filters seem to be problematic. That's kind
yeah,
of inevitable these days across the job application market. But reaching out to people on LinkedIn, if you can find connections, is also really helpful to bypass that, I found.
Mm. Yeah, and again, anybody in this call is very, very willing to help you out. Matt has his network. I have a baby network, honestly, since I'm still new. Phil knows just about everyone there is to know. And we're all very, very happy to help out because this is important to us. So this is why we come on these calls, is because we want to empower the community. So Bruno, thank you for dropping your LinkedIn. I love that you're willing to jump in and help. Um, I might be mispronouncing your name. Shabd. I'm so sorry if I am definitely mispronouncing your name and apologies. Says I found this webinar from the Open Mainframe website. Is there a better place to subscribe for updates on webinars? May, do you have a better place for folks to get updates off the top of your head?
For this specific webinar, once you register, you're on the list. So you'll get pings for every single Mainframe Open Education webinar. But if you're looking for other webinars with the other projects, the best way to register is to check the calendar listing. All of our events, including like Tech Exchange, GS UK, all of the events that Open Mainframe participates in will be in our calendar listing.
That's right. All right. Thank you so much for that. And then, Jared, just on kind of what you stated, I do think, that you are on the path, like we've been saying. Your background could definitely lead into some mainframe experience. And the Z Discord Enthusiast Discord channel is a great resource. I strongly recommend joining that Discord and just going to I think it's the introductions. And Phil, you can correct me if I'm wrong. There's like an introduction section. Just throw out an introduction, say that you learned about it through here and you really want to be more involved with the community and what your experience is and, what you're hoping the community can help you with. And there's usually a good amount of people who will respond and see if they can help you out or give you some guidance at the very least.
Yep. Couldn't have said it better.
All right. All right, so on the topic of community, and if any more questions pop up, please by all means feel free to drop them. We'll answer them as you come. Matt, what brought you into the mainframe community? And when I ask this, it's not like the mainframe, but there is this aspect of the community within the mainframe, and this could be your first exposure to the community too. Some people it's share, some people it's the Discord channel or just a person. But what's your experience with the mainframe community, and what brought you here to that, I guess.
It comes from a couple different places. My first foray was just with my first sales manager, quite frankly. But since then, getting more deeper into the weeds, going to things like IBM Think or Share or Broadcom's MTE was a really good way to not only realize who is in the mainframe community, but also how closely knit it is. You definitely see a lot of familiar faces every time at any of those events. And also leading the webinars or on the Discord channels or anything else like that. You typically see a lot of familiar faces after a while, and it doesn't take very long for you to realize it either. I began to realize it, 2 or 3 years in.
Yeah. So then, um, how would you define what the mainframe community is from your perspective?
Hmm. I think we were talking a little bit earlier about the band of brothers mentality.
Yeah.
Everyone is in the trenches. We all have our war stories in no short order because, I mean, when industry sneezes, government catches a cold. And
Hmm.
the reason I say that is the only reason why the regulations that we were talking about against mainframe exist is because industry has, from a marketing perspective and from a big tech perspective, also been trying to position cloud over mainframe. And government is just riding on that coattails and capitalizing on those buzzwords. Um, and mainframers are still here. They've experienced all that. They've ridden the wave for the past 20 years. People have been declaring the death of mainframe for, a quarter of a century at this point, but mainframe continues to outlive its own executioners. And along that time, there's a lot of interesting stories, and mainframers have always been able to tell them. And whenever someone feels discouraged based on what's happening in the mainframe space, or like they're at a loss or need to pick up mainframe skills, there's very much a "we got you back because we've been through that experience too" type of feel, a very empathetic feel within the mainframe community. That's what I've noticed at the very least. Not only
That's
someone who's there to help, but willing to help with a smile.
Yeah, right. That's very important. It's a very welcoming community. So this might be a pretty straightforward answer, but like, how did you plan to serve the community? And it could look at just like, hey, that's why I hopped on this call, because I wanted to encourage people to join this community. How have you wanted to serve the community, or how have you in the past?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much answered the question for me
Yeah.
by doing things like this call. And it's no secret that both Broadcom and IBM, they're trying to figure out how to build the next generation of mainframers. And Taylor, you can probably empathize with this as someone who's under 30 and a mainframer, trying to help the marketers within this company and Interscale or IBM understand how to attract young talent is something that I think I can offer some insights into.
Hmm.
Again, just based on my own personal experience, I didn't have any biases against the mainframe when I was a college student.
Right.
The mainframe would have been very appealing to me if I knew A, it was a stable job, B, it gave a good income, and C, there were job openings.
Right.
I just known that there was a demand there. As a college kid, of course that would appeal to me. College kids aren't going to be, appalled by the mainframe because they think it's uncool. If anything, they'll be attracted to it just because that's where the jobs are. And
Yeah.
really all that you care about as a senior in college, thinking about what's going to happen to you after you graduate. Where can I add value? Where are the jobs?
It's good. It's a good way to contribute for sure. So back on the topic of community, what events have you been to get more involved within the community specifically? I know you mentioned a few, like the MTE in the past. Do you want to expand on that a little bit about the events that are available?
Yeah, MTE, Share, those are the big two, at least from a Broadcom perspective. IBM think, of course, mainframe is going to be there along with the rest of what IBM is trying to do. Those are kind of the big three that I can think of regarding big in-person mainframe events. And Phil, I'm
Uh,
not, you have any
uh, yeah,
additional,
Tech Exchange as well.
the
IBM
mainframe,
Tech,
yeah,
IBM Tech Exchange. We've got the Broadcom Mainframe Tech Exchange, but then there's also IBM Tech Exchange as well that takes place, I think, the week after or around the Broadcom Mainframe Tech Exchange. There's also a lot of if you can't make in-person events, there's a lot of virtual events as well that IBM has as well as Broadcom.
Yep. So those are great events. Always repping Share is a great event to meet people at too. Some of the the big vendor events you have to be a customer to attend sometimes, but Share is consistently one. And there's lots of little one-off events too along the way. Um, so whatever event there is, it's likely going to end up on the Discord channel. So there
And
is, yeah.
and also if depending on where you live, there's um, an increasing number of local chapter meetups that are taking place. So for example, in the Dallas area, they're starting to do local mainframe meetups, and I'm helping to facilitate and plan those events. There's also local meetups happening in Canada and throughout the world. So depending on your location and where you live, if you are there's an IBM um, channel. I'll have to like link it in the comments or something like that, where they're gonna try and start posting these events more publicly. But if you look at LinkedIn, there's a lot of people posting when these events are taking place, and if you connect with us, you can see those announcements. And we're trying to do a better job, but it's just kind of getting off the ground. Like they're just starting. So Dallas just had their second one just a few weeks ago. So it's
Yeah.
a pretty new thing, but these are great opportunities to meet local professionals in you where you live or are close to where you live, and if you can attend, it's a great opportunity. There's also other platforms out there that have webinars like this one, like Tech Channel and Planet Mainframe, etc., who are great resources as well.
I
That's
saw
right.
Bruno posted in the chat the next MTE in June, June 24th to the 26th. And I
Yeah,
think the virtual one, the in-person one will be in October from the 15th to the 17th in Plano, Texas, I believe.
Yep.
right.
And, and just to make sure, so this is one of those events where I do believe you have to be a Broadcom
Customer,
customer
yes.
to join it. But if you, it would be interesting because there's a lot of VMware customers that, so if you're currently employed and looking around, maybe since you're technically a Broadcom customer, maybe not necessarily mainframe one, you might be able to see if there's a way to skirt in there. Just a thought. But other than that, yeah, there's a lot of events. Just keep an eye on the Discord channel and you'll see ones popping up. There's if you're in a major city that doesn't have an event, another idea is you could try to be the person to put together an event and gather people around. That's a really great way to meet people and probably to network and find possible positions if you gather all the mainframe experts in your city around one room. So just some
Yes.
thoughts.
Mhm.
That is also very possible. In fact, if you'd like more information on that, please connect with me on LinkedIn, and I can tell you how we've been getting things going here in the Dallas area.
So, just to kind of close off some of the discussion here, there's two more questions. And again, if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. But Matt, what would you say to those who are considering transitioning to the mainframe?
It's a great work environment. It's good job stability. The subject matter is incredibly interesting and you won't be disappointed.
Hmm, that's a good synopsis. And then last question, do's and don'ts for people new to the mainframe or new, yeah, do's and don'ts if you have any.
One problem that I had coming in to the mainframe, and this was also just, again, my own personality working against me, was that I didn't ask nearly as many questions as I should have, in part because I would much rather have people, deal with a silent Matt who they think is stupid rather than open my mouth and remove all doubt. But that was a wrong mentality. If you have a question, whatever you think it is, if you think it's intelligent, stupid, just ask it because someone else had the same question and you're not going to encounter any judgment by asking it. There's always just going to be someone willing to help.
Right. And then any advice, so ask questions, don't be afraid of asking questions and just ask questions.
Mhm.
I've also found that people think you're actually smart for asking questions nowadays, not the opposite way. So hopefully you're in that environment, because I know that there's questions that a lot of people ask me and they'll be like, I have no clue. And I'm like, well, that person knows what they're doing because they're thinking about something I haven't even thought of yet. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Matt. I think we've all learned a bunch about the federal space and just kind of ideas of how important it is to network from you. We really appreciate your time. Do you have any closing comments for the people listening in?
Thank you all. Thank you for letting me be here, Taylor. And it's a pleasure to be a part of this. I'm very accessible. If anyone listening wants to reach out to me on LinkedIn, email, phone, pick up the phone and call me. I'll always answer you back. Happy to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Matt. We really appreciate your time. And it was a great discussion. So real quick, on the closing, I just want to talk about, for those listening in for the first time, what is Mainframe Open Education? It is basically an open source knowledge sharing community contribution. We aim to help with onboarding new mainframe talent, obtaining industry relevant mainframe skills, developing learning roadmaps for mainframe job roles, creating a community through shared ownership, and providing free education to increase mainframe education uh, assets and ability to learn, and just really addressing the education awareness gap. We always look for people to contribute, so it's easy. We have a way for folks to add on to a oh shoot, I'm forgetting what its name is. Oh my gosh. Anyway, you can contribute pretty easily. We're looking for people to add new contact and provide feedback on what we've already done. So current structure for what we currently have is just basically how you can contribute to MOE, what mainframe is today, roles in mainframe, foundational technology, diving deeper into the roles and career path opportunities. There's a way for people to add on to this from what their knowledge is, or to ask questions on what you'd like to see in there. We always are looking for future topic suggestions as well. So we've done a lot of discussions from students to professionals. We're also always looking for additional community resources that want to talk about mainframe knowledge, opportunities to discuss learning and certificates, and then other ways to just learn more about the mainframe. So again, everybody can help out with this. We have a GitHub site that we are keeping up to date. That's where all the chapters and everything is, and you can contribute pretty easily. There's just a lot of ways that we can always use help. So you can earn a badge from this as well, and I know some people like to collect those. So that is all I have for today. Thank you guys so much, and I'll stick around on the call for a minute or two if anybody else has any more questions. But other than that, thank you guys so much for your time today.